Welcome back, everyone. I'm Professor Rhett Smith for ProtonGuru.com. Today we're going to look at lessons 5.5 and 5.6 from the Organic Chemistry 2 Primer 2021. And the topic is alkene metathesis. And to kick off our discussion of this topic, I want to point out some early work by Professor Richard Schrock, who's now at MIT. He did some work with early transition metals, and he saw some really interesting reactivity between metals that have CM double bonds, like this guy, and alkenes. He noticed there would be some sort of scrambling where you see that there's this piece I've shown in blue and this piece I've shown in red. And he discovered that if you have a metal carbon double bond like I have here, just in a catalytic amount, you would break apart these pieces and your products would have some alkenes where two of the blue halves were stuck together, which suggests that somehow you're breaking the carbon-carbon double bond and sticking two blue pieces together. Say, well, where did the red halves go? Well, on some of the products, you would see two of the red halves attached to one another. And this is very, very strange activity. This is a scrambling or a metathesis of the two pieces. They break apart and reattach somewhere else. This reaction does have to involve breaking a CC double bond and rearranging the two doubly bound units. This is the process called alkene metathesis, and this reaction has become so important that three of the pioneers in this field of alkene metathesis actually won the Nobel Prize in chemistry as well, just like in our previous unit when we talked about some palladium-catalyzed coupling reactions. So Professor Schrock won a Nobel Prize for his contribution to this work, and this is a really strange reaction, so a lot of people wondered how this reaction could possibly be working. So Professor Chauvin, also one of the people who won the Nobel Prize, Professor Chauvin's contribution was figuring out the mechanism, proposing a mechanism by which this could take place. He said, well, the double bond from the metal to the carbon is not super stable. What if we had a rearrangement of the electrons? So they dumped the electrons in here and here to make only sort of single bonds. If we did that arrow pushing, we have the R1 group and the H still attached to that carbon, but we don't have the double bond from the metal to the carbon anymore. We have these two single bonds like this, and then we have this R2 group here, without worrying about the stereochemistry for now. Now, if this happens in a reversible fashion, so I can break this four-membered ring back apart, knowing that four-membered rings aren't super stable in the first place, I could, say, break the four-membered ring up like this. That would give me metal double bond to this carbon at the bottom, right? We could draw in the two H's here, right? That's a CH2 unit there. So that would be right here in the product. And then you see these alkene pieces would be stuck together like this. So I'd have double bond, R prime and H. And then this R2 could point this way or this way. And generally the major product is going to be the more stable of the alkenes. So let's say that R2 is not just a hydrogen, so I'm going to keep it far away from the other R group and make the trans isomer. This type of mechanism, which turns out to be correct, would explain how you can sort of shuffle pieces around that are initially in carbon doubly bound to something. Now let's talk about the third person who won a Nobel Prize for work in alkene metathesis. This is Professor Robert Grubbs at Caltech. Now, I mentioned that Professor Schrock worked with early transition metals. A lot of his catalysts were not stable to oxygen or moisture in the air and would decompose. So Professor Grubbs made the contribution of developing catalysts that were more stable. He used ruthenium, which comes a little later in the periodic table than the ones that Professor Schrock was using. And he made a few different generations of these, but they all have the same key feature. Those being the presence of a ruthenium carbon double bond, good air stability, and high catalytic activity. And high catalytic activity simply means that for each mole of catalyst added, I get a very, very large number of moles of the product forming. So moving on to lesson 5.6, we'll talk about, well, what kind of important reactions or useful reactions can we apply alkene metathesis to accomplish? One of these reactions is called cross metathesis. Let's say we use the Grubbs catalyst, which is often just listed like this. And when you see that, I hope you think that it's going to do alkene metathesis. And what you see here is that we have one half of the molecule, one half of this alkene, on one side of the double bond. There's an R2 group. This other half is a CH2 group. If we have scrambling of these halves, so that there are some pieces that are two CH2 groups attached to each other, and some pieces that are two of these has with the R2 group, whether that be the trans or the cis isomer. Right? We have all these possible pieces. If we really want a good yield of one product, we need to drive this reaction in some way. This scrambling can happen forever. And the important thing about when you have a terminal alkene with a CH2 group is that every single time two of those CH2 groups find each other, they make ethylene, which is a gas. So if I look down here in the catalytic cycle, that gas will be removed. So at the end of the reaction, you won't have any of those molecules sitting in your flask unless you've collected them in some way. Instead, only the heavier, non-gaseous pieces will remain behind. And you'll, of course, favor the trans over the cis for steric reasons, right? These two bigger groups could have some steric hindrance between each other. So if we look at the catalytic mechanism, the metal alkylidine, and for Grubbs that metal is ruthenium, you have the formation of the four-membered intermediate by the Chauvin mechanism we just saw a couple pages ago. When we break that four-membered ring in such a way that the two CH2 pieces attach to each other, you form the gas. You can let that come out of your flask and collect it somewhere else. You have this compound where the R2 piece is attached to the metal. That can, of course, form the four-membered ring by reacting with another of the alkene molecules. Now you see we've got these two R2 groups right beside each other. So if we do our ring opening like that and form this alkene, presuming the R2 groups are heavy enough, won't be a gas, and you can keep that in your flask. So that type of cross-metathesis reaction where one piece of the alkene is a CH2 fragment is quite useful. Now what else can we do with this? Well, I mentioned that it's very easy to do reactions between two alkenes if you can lose CH2 pieces. So if I took a cross-metathesis where instead of two separate alkenes floating around, there are two different molecules, if instead I have a flexible alkyl chain linking them, it might be possible for a favorable ring size to get those two alkene carbons, those two, to attach to each other by the double bond. That's just like the cross-metathesis we saw over here. Two of these alkenes end up attached to each other to make these products. But now, maybe they can also be attached by this flexible alkyl linker. This will work, as it turns out, for favorable ring sizes. The most favorable ring sizes are between 5 and 7, so 5, 6, or 7-membered rings. Let me give you a specific example. Let's say we have 1,7-octadiene, and we add just a tiny bit of the Grubbs catalyst, and we let this react. Well, we know that you can scramble the pieces up. Every time two of these CH2 ends, the carbon number 8 and 1, as I've numbered it here, every time those come together, they will be a gas. Remember, this process can be in equilibrium, but we're shutting down the ability of this reaction to go backwards by taking the CH2 pieces out. So you can never get those CH2 pieces to go back on. Well, what's left in the reaction flask? It's these carbons here. And carbon number 2 is going to have to attach to carbon number 7 using a double bond. All right, so here's carbon number 2. Here's carbon number 7 attached to each other. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons in between. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we get a 6-membered ring. 6-membered rings are a very favorable ring size, so this is able to close up that ring. People refer to this as the ring closing metathesis, and you'll often see it just abbreviated RCM. What if the alkene you have is already in a ring? Well, the Grubbs catalyst doesn't rightly care if your alkene is in a ring or not. You can still have the metal with its double bond carbon form a 4-membered ring and kick off the Chauvin mechanism, right? So what can happen is you can break the bond between those two carbons. Say, well, if I break my alkene open, so here's the carbon and the carbon that were attached to each other. If I break that open, those two alkenes are looking for something to bond to. Well, what are they going to bond to? Well, if that's the only alkene you had in your solution, and you have another one of these pieces and another one of these pieces, they're going to link together in a long chain and make a polymer. So you're opening a ring and hooking the now open rings, right? It's not a ring anymore. You don't have this bond here. You've opened the ring and you've made a polymer. So this is called ring opening metathesis polymerization, abbreviated ROMP. A lot of people just say ROMP when they're talking about this reaction. Well, it wouldn't be very favorable to open up favorable sized rings, but say you have a really strained ring. That's pretty easy to open up, and it would be very nice to open that ring, relieve the ring strain. The Grubbs catalyst gives you an avenue to accomplish that. Well, let's think about this process. If we have the four-membered ring, that's a strained alkene, we have the metal alkylidine. Well, the metal alkylidine is going to engage in the Chauvin mechanism where you form the four-membered ring initially, but you have these strained rings. That's not going to just stay like that. You're going to open it back up. Get the new metal alkylidine and the new CC double bond. Well, how does that engage the next alkene, another one of these molecules? Well, it's going to engage in the Chauvin mechanism and form the four-membered ring. And then, to relieve that ring strain, you're going to have to do this. That leads to double bonds here and here. And what you see now is that two of these pieces, shown in red, have attached to one another. And you're going to make a double bond between the two pieces that came from the square, the cyclobutene. And the same type of reaction can happen at the other side. Eventually you're going to chain together a bunch of these, so I can have the double bonds linking them together. Each of these units that's linked with a double bond looks like this. So I have n units like this. So really when you see the monomer, the starting material, you know that this is going to break open because the metathesis catalysts break double bonds, not single bonds. So I always start off by drawing the compound and getting rid of its pi bond and saying, okay, the carbons that were attached to each other are now no longer attached to each other. Instead, they are going to form bonds to another unit on each side. We denote this as a polymer by drawing parentheses and putting a little n to say that this unit repeats n times. You can have more complicated looking alkenes like this one, in which case I still identify carbons 1 and 2. I'm going to draw those here, carbons 1 and 2. Coming off of carbons 1 and 2, I have carbons 3 and 6. So I'll draw those in here, 3 and 6. And then I have carbons 7, 5, and 4 coming off like this. Carbon 7 is attached to both carbons 6 and 3. So I'll indicate that here. Then I have carbon 4 attached to carbon 3 and carbon 5 attached to carbon 6. Looks kind of like this. Now, I have this really weird looking piece up here that might look complicated, but I'm going to use the same strategy I used up here, where I say, well, the alkylidine is capable of breaking the double bond, and the carbons that were attached to each other now, instead of having the double bond here, we're going to find another piece that looks just like this. So one piece that way, one piece that way. So if I'm going to draw this out as a polymer, that's a really weird way to draw this. One thing you might notice is that if I erase the numbering scheme, and I look at just this blue piece I drew up here, it's actually a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-membered ring. So a more common way to draw this structure is to draw that 5-membered ring as a pentagon. We see carbon 2 has the double bond coming off of it. Carbon 5 has the double bond coming off of it. So it's usually drawn out as a product like this. In that way, you can do a relatively complicated looking ring opening metathesis polymerization, a romp, on this difficult looking starting material.